Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of Will's Review. I'm your host, Will D. And this week we're going back to our old ways for a change because there's actually a little bit of sports news to talk about, which feels awkward after like how long of really nothing. But first and foremost, the NHL, amongst all the nonsense going on, has created a new sports team in Seattle, and they're called the Kraken.
What?
Yeah, that's what I was like. First off, hockey in July making news, like what? Um, I mean, we don't really get a conclusion to last year, but there will be a new team in Seattle called the Kraken. So, again, it's an ice sport, so penguins make sense. Sharks never made sense to me. I mean, I know it's water, but are we gonna see them in Antarctica? Like, there's not really a polar bear. There's a polar bear mascot, but a kraken? What does a kraken have to do with ice? But other than that, baseball started, and no, I'm not gonna talk about Trump and the Yankees because, well, I mean that just makes sense. But as far as standings go, every team in both the American League East and the National League East all have one win and one loss, which is, I mean, I guess it makes sense, but still really weird. And in doing so, the Yankees are officially in third place and the Mets are in first, which doesn't make any sense. But we just started the season, so we're going to have a 60-game season. Everything's in motion. We'll see what happens with half of the sports here. I mean, baseball is going to probably end up going into October and November like usual, maybe a little longer. They got to rush a bunch of games, so we'll see how good it gets. Then again, it's also like really, really hot in a lot of different places, so I don't think it's going to be that great this time around. Just my 2 cents. But one thing that happened that I told you we were going to talk about is probably the only kind of sports news we've had the last couple months, and that's wrestling. So WWE held their Extreme Rules wrestling event. Why this year it was called Horror Show, I don't know. I could not figure that out the entire time they were promoting it. They eventually added in a swamp match that wasn't that scary. But yeah, their Extreme Rules Horror Show. That you knew from the title it was gonna be somewhat disappointing. But it started off really good, and I think that's what made it the most disappointing, is that it kind of progressively got crappier. The first match of the night was one of the pre-show matches, and it was a solid match between Kevin Owens and Buddy Murphy. I gotta give the match a 5. The only COVID and the shorter rosters, we've pretty much seen that particular match up how many times by now? In some way, shape, or form, they're fighting each other in a tag match, jumping each other off outside of the ring, this, that, and the third. I mean, it was supposed to be take out Buddy Murphy so Rey Mysterio has a chance. And that made sense. What didn't make sense was that later on in the night, Rey Mysterio has his match against Seth Rollins, and no one came to help him. Seth Rollins, for the majority of that match, was beating the crap out of Rey Mysterio. Let's be honest. And during it, I mean, especially to the point where, the guy's about to take out Rey's eye, why is, Kevin Owens, who just won a match earlier, is chilling in the back? Why is it that 5 seconds later after Mysterio's eye pops out of his head, does his son come running down the ramp? This is a match that legitimately has no rules. You took out his only friend. Logically speaking, why wasn't Seth Rollins just jumped? And for that reason, besides the fact that he pretty much beat the crap out of Mysterio for the entire match, I gotta give that match a 2.5 out of 5. That was, it was mildly entertaining, but the complete idiocy of it, I know wrestling is supposed to be scripted, right? I know this watching it. So knowing that, there has to be a certain sense of believability built into it. Now the physical actions are, what is real, right? These guys take risks, they hurt their bodies for your entertainment. But in doing so, develop the storyline. The other thing about it too is that, it made sense for Seth Rollins to win. Rey Mysterio is almost out the door, right? Whether or not his eye popping out his head is real or false, if he were to have to wear an eye patch for the next year of his career, it's not a problem. Do you really see Seth Rollins wearing an eye patch for the next 10 to 15 years because of some match that happened? It's like if Rey Mysterio lost the rights to his son to Eddie Guerrero in, what was that, 2006? It wouldn't make any sense all these years later. So, yeah, this is something, you just knew Seth Rollins had to win, and they just gave it to him in the most nonsensical way ever. They took out his friend, and then he doesn't get jumped after they've been jumped. And that's the other thing. They've been jumping him for weeks. Why is this the one night you just let him be and fight fair? Doesn't make any sense. But before we even get to that matchup, after Kevin Owens was the New Day versus Shinsuke and Cesaro. I'm tired of having to say Shinsuke and Cesaro, WWE. Alright? I need you to think of a name for this tag team. Across the ocean or some nonsense. Just something that just Shinsuke and Cesaro does not work for me after no. But this was a tables match for the tag team championships on SmackDown, and it was actually good. It was actually really good. This was probably the best match of the entire night. I give it a 4 out of 5. There are little parts to the choreo that kind of felt a little off, but all in all, from start to finish, this had a lot of really great, intense moments. Even the ending of the match was legit. And it forces the New Day to kind of go back to being solo wrestlers for the time being. We all know Kofi made it all the way to the top. We all know Big E, they've been kind of pushing him and not pushing him back and forth. Give him a push. Use it as an opportunity to give him a push. I think it's a good idea. I think it should be done. Next, you had Bayley versus Nikki Cross for the SmackDown Women's Championship. There's not a lot bad about the match, but there's also not a lot good about the match. And I hate a match that ends so corny. You read it a mile away, and everybody knew at some point Sasha was going to try and cheat. And so she interferes, Bayley gets the win. I give it a 3 out of 5. It was just, it wasn't. First, I want Nikki Cross to be champion too, so maybe there's some bias there. But all in all, it just kind of felt like the match was a little drawn out, and the ending was a little bit meh. I guess it makes sense. There was no point in this match where I was thoroughly excited. So 3 out of 5. And then on the other side, Sasha Banks had a match against Asuka. Give this match 1 out of 5. Automatically, just because there's no winner. That's it. You made me sit there and watch two people fight, and I don't even get a winner. And not even in a good way, but homegirl cheats to not even get the win. I'm sorry, but why wouldn't you run to the back and get a referee who's on your side or some nonsense? Or what are you doing? Bayley takes the shirt off a referee, does the count of 3, and then walks away with the championship. And how Asuka hasn't been chasing Sasha Banks down for this championship during the rest of the week doesn't make any sense either. Asuka should be trying to hunt her down every time she's on camera. She's running it's the 24/7 championship. Yeah! That would be funny. That would be creative. This is just let's just wait for next week to fight again. I'm not with it. You're wasting my time. 1 out of 5. Then Drew McIntyre had a match against Dolph Ziggler, and this is a 3.5 out of 5 match. This is a pretty solid match. This is really good. I think there's a certain point in the match where you're oh, so McIntyre is winning this, but they stacked the entire deck against him. Dolph Ziggler tried to make the most out of it. I think it was well done. They're back and forth. They're good with each other in the ring. It's a solid matchup. You can't go wrong watching it. It's just kind of you already know McIntyre's going to win mid-match. So that was the kind of iffy ante where it loses points for me. And Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt had some stupid movie fight. Automatic 1 out of 5. These movie fights gotta go. They gotta stop it. They introduce Alexa Bliss possibly as Sister Abigail. Come the next night, and come Friday, they make no mention of it because they're not even sure they're gonna run with that version of Bray Wyatt right now. Braun Strowman's not even on TV right now after the match, supposedly buried in the swamp, but he didn't lose his championship. So how are they gonna explain that one? Somebody got to fight for that championship. I'm just saying. They introduced The Fiend back, but then they do the promos with the Wyatt from the House of Nonsense crap. I don't know what they're doing with this. Like, I understood the Braun Strowman thing, having to be with the Wyatt family. I'm all for it. But they got to make up their mind, folks. On that note, we're going to go to our first commercial break. When we come back, there's some stuff happening in media and some stuff happening in the city. So, Charles, if you could, take us to our break. Hey, everybody. I'm Will D.
I am Javier Luis.
I'm Alex Polanco.
I'm Apollonia Cruz.
And I'm Kelly Caboose.
I am Shirley Phillips.
I am Emmanuel Ansule. Do you know 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence
During their lifetime?
And domestic violence and abuse can happen to anyone,
regardless of gender, race, or other factors?
2 out of 3 homicide cases are
Females who were killed by a family member or intimate partner.
As domestic violence victims, they face high rates of depression,
Sleep disturbances,
anxiety,
flashbacks, and other emotional distresses.
And without help, witnesses of domestic violence are more vulnerable to become abusers themselves.
thus continuing the cycle of violence in the next generation.
Hello, I'm Charles Aloma. Join the LDM network and Safe Horizon and take a step into changing these facts. So if you are or know someone that is being abused, please call the City Domestic Hotline at 1-800-621-4673. So that is 1-800-621-HOPE.
speak up,
Speak out.
And make a difference.
And just know that you don't have to deal with this alone. There is help.
Alright. So, a couple things I'm gonna get to. First, for those of you who were wondering about the alternate side parking here in New York, they're going to suspend it until next Sunday, August 2nd. That's official from the mayor. That's how this is gonna go. That's it. Because people were bothering me about that at work today. August 2nd. And then, in Queens, after a bunch of parties that were taken away or happening in like Steinway and stuff like that, there are 2 bars and 1 pizzeria that just lost their liquor license. And the city is, making this as an example. People, no COVID parties. If you're a business, no COVID parties. All right, just look. It doesn't make sense. If you're a bar that loses your liquor license, you're essentially out of business, right? If you're an establishment and you're able to sell alcohol for whatever reason, just follow the rules for now. Keywords there, for now. The city is trying to make a very huge point, a very huge stand. Just play along with the game, right? It doesn't make sense to lose your business that was almost out of business and you're finally getting it back because a bunch of people want to get drunk. Like, just follow the dang rules. Let people go to the liquor store like they've been doing and throw their COVID parties at home. But you as a business have to take the stand and just follow the law. It's that simple. One good night isn't worth the rest of your business. And for parents here in the city, on certain days in the city, mostly the weekends, they have these open streets where they stop cars, people can walk and ride their bikes and, family space kind of a deal. So the city is turning some of these open streets into what they're calling play streets, where they're making it specifically for children to have certain activities where they could be. So, if you're a parent, you're looking for something to do with your kids in this current environment we're all living in, just look up they're calling it play streets and find out what areas and what activities they'll have for your children. So just something for you guys who have little ones to deal with at home, and you're tired of actually having to deal with them at home. But there's a lot of stuff going on in media. So first thing I want to speak to my geeks real quick. Dragon Ball dropped a new chapter in the manga. I've waited a little bit to speak about it because, well, spoiler alert, Goku looks like should be dead. Pretty much there's a new villain in the current arc of Dragon Ball Super. For some of you guys who may, for whatever reason, have no idea what's been going on with that the last year or so. Before the anime comes back, the new arc started in the manga, and this guy broke out of prison, somehow was only defeated by the Kai who turned into Boo, and now is like beating the crap out of everybody. Goku tried to fight him, and he lost, despite now mastering the basics of angel techniques. And angels are stronger than everything we've known so far. For those of you who have nothing to deal with geek stuff, angels are very, very strong. And then Vegeta comes out of nowhere and finds a way to beat this bad guy. And then the bad guy's like, yeah, nope. Backdoors him, becomes even stronger, and is now beating up every character in the story, right? Waiting to eat up all their energy. Why am I even bringing this up? Well, just before this chapter drop, there was a lot of buzz going on from the chapter beforehand. All the people were saying that Vegeta was going to use his super secret technique to beat up Moro. Then that didn't happen. Well, it did, but then Moro, beat him. And then he was gonna no, now I'm gonna go find Boo, which didn't make any sense, and wake up the old Kai, and that guy's gonna beat up Moro. Well, almost everyone's dead, and it's taking an angel to step in, which they're not supposed to do, and to possibly save everyone. So, for all the DB super fans who are coming up with all these theories, can I just please ask you to stop? You don't know what you're talking about. Just wait for Toriyama to drop a chapter and enjoy it. Stop guessing. You know nothing. Please. I'm tired. Fired. Yeah, they are, because I'm tired of all of my feeds on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all my other social media of people trying to take guesses that make no sense at all. So please, just read it, enjoy it, let's deal with it. Other than that, for the other side of geekdom, the side that's not all Japan, Star Wars was supposed to be dropping a movie in 2022, but with everything dealing with COVID and production stuff and yada yada yada, Hollywood pretty much went nope, and it's pushed the project back to 2023. So for all of you who are hoping for a new Star Wars movie, which I don't know who that is after the failure of what was that last Disney trilogy, it will take you another year. So you not only have to survive 2020, you have to hope that nothing worse happens 2021 or anything worse happens in 2022. Then you may just maybe make it to the end of 2023, because Star Wars likes to do December releases, and get to see the next Star Wars movie, which I'm not really excited for after the last garbage Disney gave us. Then the media this week has been full with a bunch of really random stories. I think the one that I enjoyed the most was Kanye, right? And we've had a bunch of Kanye news recently. I wanted to talk about this because everyone seems to forget that Kanye isn't in his right mind, right? So all the people who are talking about Kanye 2020, it doesn't make sense because we don't know how mentally stable he is. We don't. We don't know how to deal with Trump, who supposedly isn't crazy. To have Kanye in office, who is, I don't know if it's clinical depression or clinical bipolar disorder, but he definitely goes through his ups and his downs. And something that doesn't bother him today can bother him tomorrow, and we're gonna give him the power to push a little red button that can end the world. Doesn't really make any sense. Let's just be real about it.
No. No. He wasn't ready.
He's not.
He wasn't ready.
At all. Now, the other thing to that is, at the same way that I'm saying that's why he can't be president, people, leave Kanye alone. The man is mentally ill. You would not be going ham against that homeless guy on the street screaming, yada yada about anything. Look, Kanye said something about Harriet Tubman and not freeing the slaves and making them work for, white people. I mean, technically, he's not all wrong. They just want to work for white people willing to pay them for their services. And they got other freedoms. But he's not all wrong. I'm not saying he's right. I'm just saying he's not all wrong. But what you have to remember is Kanye speaks in a broken tongue, right? So remember when we all were like, oh, why did he say that slavery was a choice? And one, that was because the video was edited, and then you heard the whole thing, you were like, oh, he was talking about a mindset. So yes, what Kanye was pretty much saying is that despite literally freeing them from slavery, right, they didn't exactly become free, right? They still had to work for the same people they were running from, in a sense, except now they're actually getting paid for it. Despite the fact that they now had certain liberties, they were still lesser than others. They weren't starting their own businesses. They weren't they weren't completely independent and free of the clutches of the white man's supremacy. And if you look all these years later, we're still not. So is he all the way wrong? No. But did he poorly word it? Yes. But is this Kanye that we're talking about? Yes. So leave the man alone. Now, what Kanye also did was then start to go off on his entire, family. How, Chris is, the devil, and then, he's anti-abortion because then he wouldn't have his kids, and yada. Again, this is Kanye. Shake your head if you want to, be like, dang, this man is crazy, oh, I feel so bad for him. But do not entertain him. You know who needs to entertain Kanye? And you know who actually entertained Kanye? The day after his Twitter rant? Dave Chappelle. That is who should entertain Kanye. Someone who actually understands his stressors. Someone who understands why he would go off. Someone who has also been called crazy and proven not to be. But he probably does have a couple of issues he's just not dealing with, or dealing with in his own way. Look, people. We will never understand the emotional pressures of being a celebrity, of being one of the most infamous celebrities, of being someone who wants to be private but literally lives with people who live on camera. We won't understand the guilt that he feels, most of us anyway, of feeling like he killed his own mother. And that's where his whole mental breakdown started, his mother's death, because he paid for the surgery in which she died. If you've already forgotten, that's what it is. And he blames himself because it was an elective surgery that he was telling her not to do, and she talked him into it. So he feels like, if he were only stronger and fought back against her, she could still be here today. All right? And the be-all, end-all is, for those of you who still have your parents, and for some of you who don't, if you thought you were the reason that your parent died, what would your mental state be? That right there is why you leave Kanye alone. So, if you find him funny, you find him funny. If you're mad at him, you're mad at him. But don't give him the energy. There's no point. He's gonna do the dumb stuff that he does. He's Kanye. He simply is. Yeah! Just don't make him president. That's all. Suggestion. Robert Downey Jr. I mean, according to Korea, right? But yeah. So just let Kanye have his nonsense. Let Dave Chappelle break a beer with him and calm him down. That's what we need. And other random celebrity news, I posted this up on the Wheels Review page. So these guys are turning anything and everything into nonsense. So now someone's trying to turn Chrissy Teigen into a cannibal. I'm like, what are you doing? So somehow Chrissy Teigen ended up a part of the Epstein nonsense going on right now, right? Like all the backlash of who was participating in this and the whole pedophilia thing. From the beginning, this doesn't make any sense, right? Chrissy Teigen is someone who has been known to deal with like postpartum and things like that. Like she's had her difficulties dealing with children, let alone sexually assaulting them. I don't really think like I think that's just going a little too far with things. And then to say that because she's not from here, it's a possibility that she's willing to eat human flesh. Like, I don't know what the internet was up to this week, but it is truly undefeated because I can't make sense of nothing that it does. People, leave Chrissy Teigen alone. Please. Her and her six head deserve all the peace and tranquility that they need. Okay? Alright? Great. I mean, it's so silly to me that because she's a foreigner, it may be okay for her to eat, or why she thinks it's socially acceptable to eat meat. That's just so ridiculous. Let alone putting her in the Epstein thing, and then like she had to deal with having to like prove that she was not a part of the whole Epstein thing. I'm just surprised that it wasn't John Legend, her husband, who they were talking about, because like somehow a black man gets thrown under the bus for everything. But they went for Chrissy Teigen, who's like beloved by everyone about being open and honest with her parenting troubles. Makes no sense. No sense. But before we go to our next commercial break, one thing I wanted to mention for the geeks before I go is that there is going to be an upcoming comic from DC that's going to feature Batman meeting Batman Beyond. So for those, especially us 90s kids and 2000s babies who love that Batman Beyond series where he's trained by, Bruce Wayne. So Terry McGinnis will be meeting, Bruce Wayne in his younger days. And it's all thanks to the annoying superhero Booster Gold. So supposedly the storyline is that Batman is a little bit off his rocker. And I'm sure somewhere along the way we're going to find out that it's Joker's fault. And because of it, Booster Gold is supposed to be going to get Terry to go back in time and help save Batman. But the only art that we've seen is that he's going to have to fight him. So you're going to get to see Batman fight Batman, right? The Dark Knight versus the Tomorrow Knight. I don't know. I know for like DC fans, this is really big news. I think for us 90s kids, I would love to see this animated, right? Especially if they did it the old school way. Get the right voice actors back. I think it could be really awesome and really dope, even if it's like a little mini, 50-minute movie or something. But just a little fun geek news for you guys. All right. On that note, we're gonna go to our next commercial break. When we come back, we got some movies to talk about.
As mighty armies clash in a struggle for total domination, the scales can be tipped by one man who has the courage to confront his fate and make a choice that will decide the fate of the world.
Guys put a lot of smoke in today. Wow. But anyway, we expecting a real superhero? I don't think so. The real life superheroes are the ones that are helping out in their community today. And the LDM show will be there to bring you the events and stories to life. Do you know a real superhero? Let us know. But for now, follow us on Instagram and Twitter and like us on Facebook. Also visit our websites for photos, videos, and updates. But until the meantime, hey, I gotta be out of here.
Give me a second. My drink's actually kind of tart. It's like lemonade and like soda, sort of. It's really tart. But we got a couple different series to talk about. as far as Netflix goes. So I wanted to just jump right in. So one thing I wanted to talk about was the new Pokemon series that came out because we're diving off of geek stuff. I really didn't think I would enjoy it, considering that the last Pokemon arc, where Ash finally becomes champion, was one of the most crappily animated things I've ever seen in my life. But I really love Pokemon Journeys. I really do. It's charming. It's the first time in a long time that a Pokemon show had a theme song that was actually really catchy. And not just the opening, but the ending is also really catchy. So I would find myself stopping Netflix from skipping to the next episode just to hear the song. And so I'm literally spending, like, I'm not cutting it short a couple seconds. I'm spending the whole, like, 22, 23 minutes watching the entire episode from beginning to end, not skipping the theme songs, and enjoying the fun. It was really cool. They find a way to kind of, like, mix all the worlds together.
Pokemon, a group of the most unusual creatures teeming with mystery.
They leave you on a cliffhanger at the end of the series. So there's a lot of good going on in the entire series. And Ash has a buddy where he has an actual rival that he's working with, not just fighting, but he's working with him the entire way through. And I think that also changes. It's something different this time around. We haven't seen something like that since May, and they weren't so much working together as competing against each other, but these guys are helping each other become a better trainer and a better breeder in a sense. So it was really good. It was a really good series. I give it a 4 out of 5. For those of you who used to watch it, I think you can watch this and feel like you did when you were younger. And I think it's a great way to introduce your children into something that you grew up with. So definitely watch Pokemon Journeys. Another thing that was a throwback, Mr. Young. It's an old Disney series that I would see it, like commercials for it, but I never watched it. So Netflix had it. And I decided to watch all of it, and I do not regret it. It really feels like one of those good classic sitcoms that we all grew up with, and not like like that good 80s 90s feel. Not as cornily, or it's not as corny as far as like the visuals, but it's really fun. It's about a guy, we've seen this before, where like you have someone who's really young and they're really smart, and they finish college super early, right? And from there he becomes a teacher at his local high school. And so he's trying to figure out how does he fit in with people his own age, despite having to also be their teacher. There are a bunch of hijinks, and of course science stuff is involved, but it's a really fun and simple comedy. And it literally seems like it could be the older version of one of Netflix's newer series, the expanded universe of Ashley Garcia. Similar premise. She's a really smart girl. She finished school really early. She's trying to figure out how to interact with teenagers. Difference here is she moved away from her mom to live with her uncle, who's a famous football player, and you spend just as much time navigating his love life as you do hers. And I think that's a really cool dynamic. Along the way, they delve into certain aspects of Mexican and Mexican American culture, and it's just kind of it's another fun, lighthearted TV show, but I found myself laughing. I thought it would be really corny. I found myself laughing. I'd give both these series a 4 out of 5. If that whole like young kid having to be an adult but also trying to be a kid thing is something for you, these are two great series on Netflix right now that you can definitely go and watch. It's really, they're really silly, but I guess I'm a sucker for it because I like stuff like Full House. I don't know. I found myself laughing throughout all of Fuller House too. Right? See, you get it. I'm not crazy. I'm just a little bit. Also, a new stand-up dropped on Netflix called Jack Whitehall, I'm Only Joking, right? Jack Whitehall is pretty well known in the UK. Has had a special or two that Americans have gotten a chance to view. This is another one of his UK performances. And he's really calmly funny, if that makes any sense. Like, there was no point in time that I found him boring, but I also wasn't like knee slapping laughing the entire time. But I was definitely laughing. He got some very audible laughs out of me. There's a great story about him and his father going to Chernobyl, which was also recorded because it was for another BBC series. And it's just hilarious, the story that he tells. But along, he has a lot of life observation stuff, like angry people on the airplane, and even the baby's upset at some people for how dumb they are, and everybody knows you're supposed to be mad at the baby. Like, really simple stuff, really common stuff. I won't say that it's quite as simple as Seinfeld with like, why does the airplane food suck? But it's actually, I found myself quite amused while watching it. So Jack Whitehall, I'm only joking. And yes, it's white people humor. He's from the UK. Deal with it. Now, moving from comedy, there is a Chinese movie called Double World that dropped just the other day. I really wanted to like this movie. I find myself having to give it a 3 out of 5 because the visuals are awesome, the action is cool, but it was just a little too all over the place as far as the story goes, right? There's sometimes when you watch Asian movies where like there's a lot of stuff going on that only makes sense if you know like all of like China or Japan's or Korea's history. This is one of those movies. And then the way that it's done is very chopped off. So there are parts that are currently happening, parts that jump somewhere else, parts that are just kind of like, huh? And it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So I give it a 3 out of 5 because I feel like if you just watch the action in this movie, you won't feel like you wasted your time. Like literally just when they're talking, pay it no mind. The moment that you hear a sword cling or a cannon blast or like an animal roar, look up. That's it. You can, if you want to talk to your friends on Facebook while watching something, Double World is definitely the thing. Don't even try and make sense of the story. Don't do it. Don't do it to yourself. It's not. Nope. So that's just for the kung fu movie fans. Just go give that a watch. And another thing that popped on Netflix is another throwback called Heist. Now this isn't too old. This is about 5 years old. I didn't know this was a movie when it was out. So I was like, when did Robert De Niro do a movie with Morris Chestnut and Batista? And then the lead character of this is the guy who was the parent, like was the Winchester's father on Supernatural, who's also I think Egan on The Walking Dead. I'm just like, who put these 4 guys in a room together? Made no sense. And this happened in 2015 when like 3 of these guys are relevant. Seriously, Morris Chestnut, why are you in this movie? But like, it made no sense. So the moment I see this, I'm like, I have to watch this. Lord knows if it's garbage or not, but you see Batista, Robert De Niro, Morris Chestnut on a screen, you ask yourself why. Now, this is a movie about a loan shark who runs a casino and one of his employees wanting money. That's the premise of this whole movie. This whole movie. And then it somehow turns into a really crappy version of Speed, despite this. And there's some familiar faces on the police force that go and try and catch a bus that can never stop. There's some corrupt cops, some good cops. There's a whole scam going on. Like, all these things just come out of nowhere. And you know what happens the entire time? You're still asking yourself, why is Batista, Morris Chestnut, and Robert De Niro in the same campaign? This movie sounds so ridiculous, and yet I really couldn't stop looking away at it. I gotta give it a 4 out of 5 purely on entertainment value. Obviously, the casting just had me like, huh? But then you're watching this, and somebody's getting the crap beat out of them. Somebody's getting shot real quick. Someone's getting tortured. And then out of nowhere, like, it all just kind of stops. Then somebody has a sick child. And then the cops are chasing people on a bus. And there's so much happens in such a little amount of time, right? all the way down to the unpredictable ending. This move, how did I not know about this in 2015? This sounds like it would have been dope in 2015, right? Like everybody would have been talking about. No, I didn't see a trailer for it. I didn't see it in movie theaters. I didn't hear people talking about it at work. This was a ghost of a film that not to say it was going to be winning an Academy Award or anything. No, this is one of Robert De Niro's definitely I needed a paycheck kind of a situation. But it's really fun. It's a really fun movie to watch. There's no point in this movie where I'm thinking I'm going to go to sleep. So, Heist. Simple. 5 letters, Heist. It'd be really embarrassing if I messed up that spelling. But no, I didn't. But yeah, so watch it. It's awesome. The last thing on Netflix that I watched was something, it's a little old now, but it's something that just kind of like, I feel like it makes even more sense to watch it now, and I feel like this is a show that you can watch over and over and over again. Specifically picking out episodes that certain ones of your friends need to hear. Especially episode 1, your girlfriend needs to watch it. Anyone with a girlfriend, especially if you've been together a long time, needs to sit down with her and watch Adam Ruins Everything. Episode 1, just episode 1. I got you, homie. Where Adam Conover, who had a web show way back when called Adam Knows Everything, or Adam Knows Best, there we go. He talks about a lot of different social issues or, concepts that people have, and proves why what we think we know is wrong. Or, if not completely wrong, off. Like Hassan Minaj's Patriot Act, this show breaks down the issue, right? Breaks down the, I guess, the socially accepted ideas on the issue and why they're wrong, and then even offers up feasible solutions to any problems that have come up throughout the episode, right? Not to say that all of them are quick acting or whatever, but it's exactly what we would need to do to actually solve the problem. He introduces different experts on each and every, topic that he talks about. They build in somewhat of a general storyline for continuous use of characters. I think my only problem with the entire thing is that somehow with this being an informational comedy, they still found a way to kill a black person. You laughing, but I'm dead serious. Like, how you go and kill the black person on a show where what? Huh? And you know what? You know what the worst part about it is? They killed the black person in the episode where the white lady was supposed to die. What? Exactly. So, for that reason, this show gets only a 4 out of 5. But other than that, I loved this show. And I love the casting, I love the humor, I love the information. I love the character that is Adam Conover in this project. He even breaks down like reality TV and how even his own show is done and stuff. It was really cool. It was really cool twist on perception and what we know to be fact and what we know to be false. So I enjoyed this. I think everybody should watch this, but especially those of you who have a girlfriend, especially if you've been with them for a long time, sit her down, put on Netflix, and watch episode 1. You may not get through the entire series, but believe me, watch episode 1. Watch episode 1. Alright. There are going to be a lot of people wondering, like, why is he stressing this so hard? Watch episode 1. You'll know exactly why in, like, the first 10 minutes. Okay? Cool. Now, the last thing that I watched on Hulu because it's been sitting there on my queue for a long time. And it was sitting there because I remember when this came out in theaters, I literally said to myself, I will only watch this if there is nothing else to watch and I had Tuesday afternoon completely free. I was going to go to the movies with my A-list and make it the third movie in the week that I would watch. I will say now that I was fortunate enough to be busy that Tuesday, because despite it have been like being free for me, I had to watch this movie in bits and pieces over the last few weeks. Yes, weeks is in plural, because it was just so bad. So bad. I knew it was gonna be bad, but not this bad. I can normally watch a bad movie and just be like, wow, I just wasted 90 minutes. I literally had to speak, like I had a conversation with myself. Like I should have been committed for the verbal abuse that I gave myself for wasting 90 minutes on this piece of garbage. And it is a movie called Crawl. Now, we're going to start off with how incorrect the title is, because the movie is about a girl trying to save her father in the middle of a hurricane in Florida from 2 hungry alligators in their house. Nothing but water, and you called it Crawl. Not swim, but crawl. Okay. And that right there is why I said I would watch it on Tuesday. My thing is this. I'm going to give this movie a 2 out of 5 only because the likelihood that something like this would happen could only happen in Florida. And that fact right there is a little bit of believability that I wish I wish some of these WWE movie matches actually had. So that right there, that one little piece of information that then makes it understandable to why this is a nonsensical movie, why no one in the movie actually has any sense of intelligence, and I mean, in all, really, gators in a house in a hurricane, people. Sharknado seems way more plausible and realistic than this movie. Sharknado. Think about that. I would honestly tell you, go and watch Sharknado and take it as a more serious movie than Crawl. Like, garbage. Its only redeeming factor? Yeah, it's in Florida. Like when you hear about really random, really dumb, really stupid news stories, it's in Florida. So where is a really crappy movie going to take place that you're just left like, why would you do this? Who thought this was a good idea? Like when you guys were in a room and were deciding what should I waste my money on, hoping and praying that it turns into a profit. This is what you like. The executive producers of the movie really wasted their money on this, thinking that we're gonna get our money back. Crawl. Skip it. Just skip it. I don't even feel I should have wasted this much breath on it, but I feel the need to go into such detail as to why you should not watch this movie. Just don't. Just don't watch this movie. Now, before we go, we're going to do our fans of the week. So, Charles, do you have everything set up?
Yep.
Yep. So, who do you have first over there?
Okay, drum roll, please. We got Buffer. I don't know what's Buffer. Yao.
This is literally why I asked him to do it. It's hey yo.
Yo.
Yeah. How you
I
get
don't know.
There's not even
an A at the end.
Like, what are you doing? But yes, so Buffer AU doing his thing out in Asia. Pro wrestler that I got a chance to meet while he was performing here in the Bronx. So shout out to you, very active on the page always. Then we have Miss Badass. Why is it 2 S's and a Z? Toya, explain that one. 2 S's and a Z. Like, why is it not 2 Z's or an S and a Z? So I need you to break that down for me.
I don't know. Is the name really matching though?
I mean, she got a lot of attitude, so maybe. I mean, not with me. We cool, but yeah, maybe. But yeah, so shout out to her. Then on Facebook, we had 2 dudes win this time. We've had 2 girls win before. We got 2 dudes winning this time. So first is a guy whose name people must like a lot because it's twice. Bilal Bilal. First time winner. Also, really, Bilal. You gotta explain that to me. When people have the same name twice, I feel like someone must then immediately explain to you why that is. Right? Like, when they become of age to realize that they said their name twice, they have to be like, Mom and Dad, why did this happen? And then from that point forward, every year on the first day of school, they must tell everyone in their class. Every time they start a new job, and they must tell all their coworkers. And anytime they pop up on someone's contest, you must now explain to us why your name is Bilal Bilal. So please, explain to me why your name is so nice, they named it twice. And last but not least is a very repetitive face on this show, Dustin Strube, who wins this. It feels like he wins it almost every other week because he's very active on the page. So shout out to him for being a very loyal follower and fan. All right. Before we go, we have our picture of the week, which I feel is only fitting because I know a bunch of people brought out the coolers this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Right? If you made it to the beach, if you just wanted to sit on the block with some beer, you brought out the cooler. You went to the store, you got your ice, and then you choke slammed it like you were Kane. Because that's what we do whenever we get our bag of ice. We don't want one large clunk. We want little bits and pieces that we can put our drinks in the middle of, or perhaps put in our cup. And in order to do so, we all want to feel like a WWE wrestler beating the crap out of their opponents. I see everyone do it too. Like, you don't just plop the bag on the ground or this, and people be like doof and slamming it, and then they trying to be doing the rock bottom. If they could, they would do a swanton bomb, but then they realize it'll hurt their back, so they just go with the choke slam. That's what it is. You just take it up real high, poof. That's honestly, that was my favorite part to like family picnics, was literally having to break the ice for the cooler. Because, you know, even at like 4 and 5, it just made you feel like you were Kane giving a choke slam. And, I mean, what feels better than literally being able to lift up an entire human being with just your arm strength and then slamming them down to the ground to the point that it incapacitates them. So I think that's just a great feeling that we all wish we could actually experience. And we live vicariously through doing it to an ice bag. So on that note, folks, this has been another episode of Will's Review, and we will catch you guys